Here's my surprise for you. You're fired. Effective immediately. That sentence should have shattered me. But instead, as I stood frozen in my boss's son's glass office, surrounded by fake birthday decorations and a stale chocolate cake no one touched, all I could feel was stillness. A cold, clean pause. He said it with a smirk, as if he'd just gifted me a designer purse. Go ahead and pack your things, Jesse. We'll have I revoke your access in 10. I nodded once. No arguments. No tears. Just quiet. I turned, walked past the stunned receptionist, who blinked as if unsure if this was some cruel office prank, and stepped into the elevator without looking back. The metal doors closed. My reflection stared back at me. Today was my 35th birthday. It had started so differently. My husband, Noah, had made me coffee at 6:30 a.m., singing Happy Birthday off-key while our 2 rescue dogs danced around our feet. He had kissed my forehead and said, "Just get through work. Then the real birthday begins." That morning, I thought the real birthday meant dinner reservations or maybe a surprise weekend getaway. Turns out, it was something entirely different. Now, sitting in the driver's seat of my car, my work badge still dangling from my rearview mirror, I called Noah. He picked up on the first ring. "Happy birthday, baby," he said cheerfully. "What time should I pick you up?" "I'm already out," I replied quietly. "I got fired." Silence. Then, "Today?" 10 minutes ago. A pause. "Was it Darren?" "Yes." Another pause. Then Noah chuckled, not with amusement, but with a strange sense of knowing. "Good," he said. I blinked. "Good?" He exhaled. "Jess, we talked about this. You were never safe there. You knew it. I knew it. You were carrying that company on your back while Darren played executive cosplay." He wasn't wrong. I had joined Everland Homes 5 years ago when it was a small but respected architectural firm known for its integrity and clean designs. I was brought in as a senior planner, but within a year, I'd modernized their project flow, integrated safety and compliance across all departments, and saved the company hundreds of thousands in failed inspections. When Gregory, the original CEO and Darren's father, was in charge, I was respected, promoted, heard. Then came Gregory's stroke, and Darren, the son with a business degree and a trust fund, was groomed to take over. In less than 6 months, he'd cut the legal review team, hired a PR agency no one needed, and turned my department into his personal scapegoat. He forgot to invite me to key meetings, claimed my reports were too technical. And now, on my birthday, he gave me the final gift: termination. By the time I got home, Noah had already changed out of his work clothes. He was standing in the kitchen with 2 glasses of champagne. "What's this?" I asked, setting down my keys. He smiled. "To endings." I blinked. "And to what happens 4 hours from now?" he added, clinking his glass against mine. "Noah, what are you talking about?" He didn't answer, just kissed my cheek and said, "Just trust me." 3 hours and 46 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the couch beside me. Missed call. Then another. Then 5 more. By the time I glanced at the screen, it showed 98 missed calls. Every single one from Everland. The office manager, 3 department heads, even Darren himself. And just like that, I realized something. This wasn't just a firing. This was a mistake, one they couldn't afford to make. Before I tell you what happened next, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Many viewers follow these stories and forget to hit the bell. And trust me, the way this unfolds, you won't want to miss the next part. Back to the story. That night, as Noah and I sat under string lights in our backyard, he finally explained what he'd known for weeks. "Darren approved the Ridgeview deal last Friday," he said, "and he submitted plans under your name, but he altered your original designs." My stomach dropped. "Noah, that's illegal." He nodded. and dangerous. My hands trembled. Ridgeview was a $22 million housing development. One structural flaw, one missed code, and he forged your sign-off, Jess. That's when it hit me. By firing me, Darren hadn't just rid himself of someone competent. He'd erased the only person who could defend what came next. And that, I realized, wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. I barely slept that night. Not from grief or anxiety, but from the sheer rage of what I'd just learned. Fired on my birthday, yes. But more than that. Used. My name, my credentials, my reputation, all weaponized by a man who couldn't design a fire escape without consulting YouTube. Darren had forged my approval on the Ridgeview development plans. And now, with me out of the picture, no one was left to answer questions when things went wrong. Because, trust me, they would go wrong. The Ridgeview project had been my baby. I spent 6 months refining those plans, making sure every elevation, every code spec, every material choice was flawless. I knew the soil grades. I'd walked the site myself. I flagged the unstable perimeter wall that Darren had insisted was just cosmetic. So when Noah showed me the submitted blueprints that night, stamped with my digital signature, but missing key safety features I'd fought to include, I knew exactly what had happened. Darren had stripped my version down to something cheaper, faster, and more dangerous. He thought no one would notice. And then he fired me, probably hoping I'd vanish quietly, with no reason to ever look back. By 8 a.m. the next morning, my phone had racked up 119 missed calls. The latest voicemail was from Susan, the compliance officer. Jesse, I don't know what's going on, but we can't access the Ridgeview system files. It keeps asking for the primary architect override. Darren is... He's panicking. Please call me back. Please. I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a single text to Susan. Speak to your legal team before contacting me again. This message will be saved. And then I picked up my bag, slid my laptop inside, and turned to Noah. I need a favor. He raised an eyebrow. I need a meeting. With someone high enough to take this seriously. The Ridgeview contract was submitted to the city. Who handles post-approval compliance checks? Noah didn't even blink. My boss, Gina. I'll call her. 2 hours later, I sat across from Gina Montoya in a quiet conference room at the Department of Urban Development. A sharp woman in her early 50s with clear glasses and a no-nonsense attitude. I laid out everything. The original Ridgeview plans. My actual version. Darren's altered submission. The forged timestamp from my login credentials, which I proved had occurred while I was on vacation 3 weeks prior. Gina didn't interrupt once. Just took notes, nodded slowly, and finally said, Jesse, what you're showing me isn't just unethical. It's criminal. If those homes were built with these specs and something failed, families could die, I said flatly. She tapped her pen. I'm going to flag the Ridgeview permit for emergency review. And you're going to need legal representation. If your name was forged, you're not responsible. But the optics could get messy. I nodded. I'm ready. Back at home, Noah handed me a printed email. Subject, urgent, Jesse. Please call me. From Gregory R. Langford, founder and former CEO, Everland Homes. I hadn't spoken to Gregory since his stroke the previous year. We'd exchanged a few polite texts during his recovery, but he hadn't been involved in day-to-day operations since Darren took over. Noah read my hesitation. You should talk to him, he said quietly. He's not like Darren. So I called. Jesse. Gregory's voice rasped through the line, weaker than I remembered, but still sharp. What happened? You mean, besides being fired illegally and having my signature forged on $1 million project? Silence. Then softly, I'm sorry. I never should have handed him control. I let the silence hang before replying. It's done now. Can you meet me? I'm not interested in coming back, Gregory. I'm not asking you to. I just need to talk. Please. I agreed. We met later that afternoon at a small cafe, far from downtown. Gregory looked older, thinner, but regret clung to him like a second skin. I built that company for 30 years, he said, and my son undid it in less than one. I thought he just needed structure. I didn't realize he needed a leash. I said nothing. Gregory continued. Susan told me what he did. He's denying it, of course. Said you sabotaged the files. I laughed bitterly. Of course he did. He leaned forward. Jesse, if you pursue this legally, the company will fall. You know that. I looked him in the eye. That's not my problem. He swallowed. What if I offered you something else? I'm listening. But before he could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This one from Darren himself. Jesse, look, maybe we can fix this. I didn't mean for it to go this way. We could talk. Come back. I'll undo the termination. We'll call it a miscommunication. Miscommunication. I ended the call and looked back at Gregory. They're scared, I said. And they should be. I didn't respond to Darren's message. Not out of strategy, at least not at first, but because I physically couldn't. My hands shook too much. The man who fired me with a smirk on my birthday now wanted to undo it like it was a bad calendar invite. Miscommunication, he said. As if terminating someone, forging signatures, and risking public safety was a typo. He had no idea that the city had already frozen the Ridgeview project. No idea that Gina had opened a formal inquiry, and no idea that I wasn't coming back. Not ever. The problem was, the deeper I got into what had happened, the more I realized something chilling. It wasn't just Ridgeview. That evening, Noah sat across from me at the kitchen table with a folder full of printouts. These are Darren's permit submissions over the last 6 months, he said. I pulled them from public records. Just compare them. One by one, I laid out the blueprints. One by one, the pattern became clear. Cut costs, lower specs, remove redundancies, shorten inspection timelines. And every time, a signature. Mine. Or someone else's from the design team. Names of people I knew had no idea they were being used. I think Ridgeview was just the first to almost hit the wall, I whispered. Noah nodded grimly. We need to take this beyond the city. You mean the state board? I mean the licensing bureau, the ethics committee, anyone who will hold him accountable. The next day, I spoke with a construction ethics investigator. I didn't want to go public yet. I wasn't looking for fame. I wasn't out for blood. I just wanted the truth out. And the risk to stop. But truth doesn't come quietly. By Thursday morning, a local news site ran the headline. Whistleblower flags major safety violations in $22 million Ridgeview development. My name wasn't mentioned, but the quotes, the documents, those were mine. Within hours, 3 more outlets picked it up. City council members issued statements of deep concern. And Gregory called again. Jesse, I don't blame you. But Darren, he's spiraling. He fired 2 more people yesterday. Legal's a mess. Clients are threatening to pull contracts. He paused. They want to talk to you. I stiffened. They? The board. No. Jesse, I don't need an apology from a board that let this happen. They watched him dismantle everything. Gregory sighed. Then, what do you want? I didn't answer. Because honestly, I didn't know yet. That night, Noah and I finally talked about something we'd both been dancing around. What if this becomes bigger than we expected? He asked. What if people start coming after you? You mean legally? I mean professionally. Personally. Retaliation. Darren's the type. I nodded slowly. Then I'll need protection. From the closet, I pulled out an old binder, one I hadn't opened since I freelanced during grad school. Inside were sketches, flowcharts, system notes. A full outline for a project management system I'd once dreamed of building. One that would eliminate the need for manual tracking, flag inconsistencies in submissions, and store backup approval trails. I had stopped working on it once Everland offered me a stable role. But now it felt like the right time. I'm not going back, I said to Noah, but I'm going to build something better, something they'll need. 2 days later, I registered my company, Proofline Project Systems. Within 48 hours, I had a consultation request. Not from Everland, of course, from one of their biggest competitors. They'd seen the news, they'd read between the lines. By the following week, 2 more firms reached out, quietly, discreetly. They didn't want to get caught in the headlines, but they did want better systems. Systems I could build. Meanwhile, Everland was burning from the inside. Susan, the compliance officer, messaged me late one night. "Jesse, everything is falling apart. Darren's been removed from daily operations, but we can't recover Ridgeview. City says it's unsalvageable. We might lose our license." Then another message, this time from Gregory. "They want to offer you something. Not employment, a contract. You oversee project integrity, full autonomy. We'll pay. Just help us recover. Please." It was tempting. Not because I wanted to help them, I didn't. But because I knew what I'd built, what I was about to build, was the future. And part of me wanted them to pay to access it. Before I replied, I called Gina at the city office. Hypothetically, I asked, if a private company partnered with the city to build a transparent project verification tool, could it replace the current filing system? She didn't hesitate. If it worked? Absolutely. Jesse, we'd pay for it. The real gift Darren gave me wasn't that text message on my birthday. It was the fire he lit under me. The chance to rebuild, not just my career, but the rules themselves. And now? Now I wasn't knocking on anyone's door. I was building the damn building myself. I didn't respond to Gregory's message right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And I wanted to make sure every word was delivered at the right time, with the right leverage. 2 days after he reached out offering a contract, I sent a short reply. "We can discuss terms. My assistant will coordinate a meeting. I'll bring my conditions. I suggest you bring yours." Noah raised an eyebrow when he read it. "You have an assistant now?" I shrugged. "Technically, it's my cousin Rachel, but she's good with scheduling and knows not to take crap from anyone." We both laughed. But beneath the humor, I felt something new. Stability. Not in the way a steady job offers, but in something deeper. I had control over my path now. And no one, especially not Darren, could take that away again. The meeting was set for a Friday afternoon in a neutral downtown conference space. I arrived early, dressed in black slacks and a crisp navy blouse. Confident, but not flashy. I didn't want to be underestimated, but I also didn't want to walk in looking like revenge incarnate. That's not what this was anymore. Gregory arrived with 2 board members and the firm's attorney. No Darren. "Where is he?" I asked flatly, not bothering with small talk. "Removed from decision-making," Gregory replied. "He's on indefinite leave while the ethics investigation runs its course." I nodded once. "I read your proposal," he continued, sliding a printed copy of my terms across the table. "You'd create and oversee an entirely new project integrity system, independent from our operations. You'd report only to the board." "That's correct." "You'd have access to every file, every permit, every blueprint. You'd audit everything before it goes to the city?" "Yes." "And if we object to one of your flags?" "Then it doesn't move forward. That's non-negotiable." The board attorney leaned forward. You're asking for a lot of power, Ms. Reyes. I'm offering a lot of liability protection. And frankly, after what happened, you need someone the city trusts. Right now, that's me. There was a pause. Gregory looked at the others, then back at me. What's your rate? I opened my folder and slid over a typed number. It wasn't outrageous, but it wasn't cheap either. The attorney looked like he swallowed a lemon, but Gregory didn't flinch. Approved, he said. But I wasn't done. One more condition. Of course, Gregory replied. Darren completes full retraining, every module I assign. He doesn't touch another project until I sign off. They looked stunned. You want to supervise him? One of the board members asked. I want to educate him. If he's going to stay in this industry, he's going to learn to do it right. Or not at all. Another long pause. Finally, Gregory nodded. Done. I walked out of that room with a signed agreement in hand. It wasn't a return to Everland. It was a restructuring of the power dynamic. They needed me. And this time I was walking in on my terms, with documented authority and legal insulation. They couldn't fire me. They couldn't override me. They couldn't ignore me. And Darren? Well, Darren was about to be my student. A week later, I sent him his first assignment, Module 1, Fundamentals of Project Integrity and Compliance. He didn't reply, but 2 days later, the module was returned. Completed? Accurate. I sent the next one. And the next. For 6 weeks straight. Every submission came back on time, sometimes with questions. At first, I assumed it was performative, a damage control act to rebuild his image. But slowly, I started noticing a shift. His tone changed. His responses became more thoughtful. In a few cases, he even caught things I hadn't flagged. Was it real? Or just a performance? I wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Proofline Project Systems was growing. After the news of my Everland contract broke, 2 more city departments reached out for consultations. I hired Rachel full-time, then an intern, then a software developer to start building the verification tool I had outlined in that old binder. It was happening. Bit by bit, I was building what I had once only imagined, a system that wouldn't just catch mistakes, but prevent them. One that didn't need someone like me to manually verify everything. One that made ethical choices the standard, not the exception. One afternoon, Gregory called. Jesse, we have a request. What kind? A client wants to know if you'd consider presenting the new project verification process at the Ridgeview Town Hall. I hesitated. That's a public meeting. Yes, and you're the one person who can restore trust. Trust. That word again. But I thought about it, and I realized it wasn't just about Everland anymore. The community had a right to hear from the person making sure this mess didn't happen again. I'll do it, I said finally, but only if Darren's there too. The Ridgeview Town Hall was scheduled for a Wednesday evening in the community center gymnasium. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, and one long plastic table where Gregory, a city official, and I would sit. It was nothing glamorous, but it might have been the most important meeting of my professional life. I arrived early. The room was already filling up with residents. Some angry, some confused, some just curious. These were the people who had trusted Everland Homes to build their futures, their starter homes, their retirements, their children's backyards. And for a while, that trust had been badly misplaced. Gregory arrived next, followed by a staff member from the city's Department of Planning and Zoning. And then, almost exactly at 6:55, Darren walked in. He didn't look like the Darren I remembered. No smug smile, no expensive blazer, no phone glued to his hand. Just a plain blue button-down, sleeves rolled, and a manila folder under one arm. He gave a brief nod in my direction and took a seat in the audience. Interesting. At 7:02 p.m., Gregory stood and addressed the crowd. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Tonight is about transparency, about answering your questions and owning our mistakes. That begins with introducing the person who's been rebuilding our project integrity system, Jesse Reyes. I stepped up to the microphone, heart thudding against my ribs. I'd spoken at plenty of meetings in the past, but this wasn't just professional. This was personal. Good evening, I began. I know some of you might recognize my name from recent reports. I was a lead project planner at Everland for 5 years. Last month, I discovered that my name had been used without my permission to approve project plans I didn't create. After I brought this to the city's attention, an investigation confirmed multiple compliance violations, many of which affected the Ridgeview development. Murmurs rippled through the room. I continued calmly. Since then, I've been contracted as an independent integrity consultant to audit and rebuild all processes connected to Ridgeview. What that means is, every revised plan, every material order, and every safety compliance check now passes through a new system, one that I control. A woman in the second row raised her hand. Why should we trust Everland again? Why should we believe anything now? It was the question I had expected. I nodded. You shouldn't take anything on faith, I said. But you can verify. We've created a public dashboard, updated weekly, with plan approvals, inspection dates, and compliance sign-offs. You'll know exactly what's happening and when. Another hand shot up, then another. Questions about soil stability, drainage, electrical planning. I answered each one thoroughly, not defensive, just factual. And that's when Darren stood. Everyone turned. He walked slowly to the front of the room, glanced at Gregory, then looked directly at me. May I speak? He asked. Gregory hesitated. I nodded once. Darren stepped to the mic. My name is Darren Langford. Many of you know me as the acting director of Everland. Some of you knew my father when he ran this company with integrity. I did not honor that legacy. A beat of silence. I altered project submissions to cut costs. I overrode safety protocols. I used other people's credentials to approve plans that wouldn't have passed inspection. I believed I could manage the fallout. I was wrong. The gym was utterly silent now. I was removed from operations after the investigation, but over the last 6 weeks, I've been retraining, under the guidance of Ms. Reyes. Not because anyone forced me to, but because I had to understand how badly I'd failed. And because if this project is ever going to mean something again, it starts with accountability. He turned back to the audience. I know I can't erase what I've done, but I'm committed to fixing it, one step at a time. He returned to his seat. No applause, no outbursts, just a heavy, thoughtful silence. After the meeting, a few residents approached me. Some still skeptical, others quietly grateful. One elderly man said, If you're the one fixing this, I'll sleep better tonight. That meant more than any corporate title I'd ever held. Darren approached just as I was packing up. I meant what I said, he offered. I studied him. Good, because this isn't over. Integrity doesn't happen once. It has to be maintained, every step, every day. He nodded. I understand. As he turned to leave, I called after him. Why did you really stand up there? He looked back. Because you were right. Not just about the project, about me. I didn't deserve the position I was given. And I never earned the trust I was handed. But maybe I can earn some back. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because trust, like integrity, is something built, not given. And it was still under construction. 3 months passed. Ridgeview was officially reinstated, this time under strict oversight, weekly public audits, and triple verification systems. Construction resumed slowly, cautiously, under the weight of everything that had nearly gone wrong. But something had changed. Not just the project, not just the company, me. I was no longer waking up wondering if I'd be blindsided at a morning meeting or have my ideas ignored in favor of someone else's ego. I wasn't just working for someone anymore. I was working on something that mattered. Proofline Project Systems had secured 4 new municipal contracts. My system was being piloted in 2 counties. City officials were recommending it as a benchmark model. I was hiring full-time staff. And for the first time in my career, I wasn't chasing approval. I was setting the standard. One afternoon in early spring, I was invited to speak at a regional architecture and compliance conference. Nothing huge, just a panel discussion about ethics in urban development. I almost said no. But then I thought about the Jessie from a year ago, the one who got fired on her birthday, who left the office without raising her voice, who quietly shut the door behind her while everyone else clapped for a man who didn't know half of what she did. And I decided to show up. When I finished my talk, a young woman approached me. Early 20s, anxious but determined. "Hi, I just wanted to say your story, what you shared today. It reminded me of something I'm going through. I work under someone who keeps taking credit for my work. I thought maybe that was just the industry." I smiled gently. That's not the industry. That's just someone hoping you'll stay quiet." She blinked. "So what do I do?" I handed her my card. "You document everything. You protect your work, and you start building something no one can take from you." She held the card like it was gold. Maybe to her, it was. Back home that evening, Noah grilled dinner while I watched the sun dip behind our newly finished fence. Our fixer-upper had become a haven, a little rough around the edges, but ours. He looked up from the grill. "It's been exactly 6 months since Darren fired you." I laughed softly. "Feels like a lifetime ago." He raised an eyebrow. "If you could go back, would you still walk out the same way?" "No question," I replied. But this time I wouldn't wait so long to stand up for myself. He handed me a plate and we sat down on the porch steps. "You didn't just stand up," he said. "You built something stronger than what they destroyed." I paused, taking in his words, then pulled out my phone. There was a message from Gregory. "Jesse, board approved the citywide protocol expansion. We're adopting your system for all projects going forward. Congratulations." Below that, another from Darren. "Completed Module 12. Site team caught a design error today, because I flagged it first. Thought you'd want to know I didn't reply. Not yet." Instead, I sat in the quiet, listening to the dogs rustling in the yard, the sound of traffic in the distance, the world moving forward. Calm, but not still. I thought about everything that had happened. The text on my birthday, the forging of my name, the silence I'd chosen over outrage, the system I built from an old binder, late nights, and a whole lot of bitterness turned into purpose. I didn't burn Everland to the ground, but I rebuilt the ground they stood on my terms, with my tools, and no one could take that away. People ask me sometimes if I ever forgave Darren. The truth? I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't always the point. Maybe it's about creating enough distance between the person you were and the person you've become that their power fades on its own. What I do know is this. Revenge doesn't always look like scorched earth. Sometimes it looks like leadership. Sometimes it looks like walking back into the room, not to beg for your job, but to rewrite the way the job is done. Sometimes it looks like watching someone learn the lessons they once mocked you for knowing. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. You probably understand something a lot of people overlook, that the greatest revenge is not in making someone pay. It's in making yourself unshakable. It's in using what was meant to destroy you as the foundation for something stronger, more ethical, more respected, and fully your own. So here's to being fired on your birthday, and to becoming the kind of person they have to call back, only to realize you no longer need to answer.